So, a few months back, in April of 2024, I asked my grandmother if she would be interested in sharing her story on my channel, and she agreed to do so. So now, I have the amazing opportunity to share the conversation we had with you all, which I am very much grateful for. So, stay tuned for today's conversation as me and my grandmother discuss how life was growing up for her in the 50s and 60s, alongside with her family, her experience living through racial segregation, her honest thoughts about me as her granddaughter, and much more topics. So stay tuned and enjoy. And no, this cartoon woman is not how my grandmother looks. Hey there, Armor here, and welcome to a brand new Armavation conversation. Today's conversation will be the one and only best human being on the planet Earth, and the most inspirational woman and role model to me is my one and only grandmother. Welcome, Grandma.
Good morning.
Okay, so thanks, Grandma, for taking the time to share your voice and thoughts today for this conversation. I truly appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So, the first thing I want to ask you, I always ask my guests this, but from human to human being, how are you doing? How are you enjoying this year so far?
So far, so good. I'm doing fine.
Okay. So, I want to start and move on to talk about some more of your childhood and like how you were raised and grow up, cause how you grew up, because compared to how I grew up, it was totally different from when you grew up. So, let's start with going over how was it like being raised in the 50s and 60s in the South. Like, what were some family traditions that you and your family participated in, like growing up with your parents and siblings?
With my parents and siblings, we made good food together. We visit the grandparents and lots of other relatives, and we made and cooked food together. And we just had a lot of fun, and we had very, very nice people in the neighborhood.
Like, how would you describe a day to day at that time? Because the 50s and 60s in the South was totally different. Now we have like the new South, where the new South is implementing certain things with how cities from the North are, and also with the new South, there's a lot of more culture being brought in from other places around the world. So back then in the South, it was totally different. Like, I think you mentioned this to me before when we talked. It was more of a like farming land mostly, and more rural, right?
Yes.
So how was it like from a day to day? Like, you wake up and you go about your day as a child or teenager. How was that?
Well, we played with friends and sisters and brothers, and we look forward to playing with the animals, and we look at the trees and the birds and the bees, and we just learn lots of things from nature.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up, when it come down to going out, we went to church a lot, and then I noticed when I was maybe 7, 8 years old, there was a lots of racism back then.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was very young, I thought all white people were cousins, and
Mm-hmm.
they preferred to be with their cousins because they look alike to me.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is because I had preferred to be with my cousins than anyone else. And when I have friends come over, I want my friends to go when my cousins came by.
Right.
But over time, I learned better.
Mm-hmm.
And as I think I was 10 years old when there was a guy named Emmett Till was assassinated, and I couldn't believe grown adults would assassinate a kid. And I was 10 years old. I was ready to leave the United States because I thought that was horrible and so cruel.
Okay, well, hold on. We're gonna get to that because I want to speak more on segregation and all that with you. But I think what I'm trying to say is more so like, as a kid growing up in your house, you wake up in the morning. What do you eat? Because when I grew up, when I'm like I was a kid in the early 2000s, so the first thing I remember is getting up, getting ready for school on weekdays, but like on the Saturdays, I would get up, get my cereal, watch Cartoon Network, or not Cartoon Network because that was more at the later times, but just watching morning cartoons, playing Game Boy, different things like that. So back in the 50s and 60s, what was it that you kids or teenagers were growing up first thing in the morning? Was it playing with toys? Was it like more wooden blocks?
We wake up early in the morning. We would wait for my mother to. We would get dressed and wait for my mother to make breakfast, and we couldn't wait till the breakfast get ready. And we went out to play some skip, jump rope, hopscotch, ball, baseball, basketball, and those little things that most kids do because those are old type games. And we also played something called jackstones. You throw a ball and you catch some little jacks, and on and on as it went. And we read stories and we laughed and we used to listen to a Bible hour with they tell Bible stories, and we grew up with a lot of that, and we learned lots of morals from our parents, all our grandparents. I knew all four of my grandparents, so I knew three of them very well.
Right.
And they were very, very nice people, very highly moral, and very decent people, and very understanding. They had a lot of fun together, laughing and talking about all kind of things and what they saw.
Right.
And we used to call the policeman the blue coat man because he wore blue clothes. And I noticed as people were maybe in the 50s, 60s or whatever, they called the police the man. So that was a difference.
So how well, also with being raised in the 50s and 60s, like in the South, I know when we had conversations before, you mentioned like you guys had to wake up super early to work on the farm. Explain and describe the farm life, how that was.
With the farm, sometime you would, the older people would get up around 6 o'clock and they go to work. And then the younger kids sometime would come after, and you do little chores based on what was to be done. And they harvest vegetables, and sometime you take them to be sold, and sometime you didn't. So it went on and on and on.
And you mentioned to me you guys had different like trees, like different fruits and vegetables in the garden too as well.
We had all the types of vegetables that most people in America eats.
Right.
All different types of onions, different types of tomatoes, cucumbers, watermelons, you name it. We had all those things.
Do you kind of like how it is to go to grocery stores and get your fruit from like produce, go to the actual produce section in the grocery store, or do you like it kind of back like how your childhood was, where everyone had their own garden and got their fruits and vegetables straight from nature?
Yeah, I liked it that way because we didn't have all these chemicals on like we do on fruit and vegetables like we do today, and they taste better also. And they were very fresh, and you raised them, you know what was put on them. It's just like cooking at home compared to going to a restaurant. You know what was on your food if you cook it at home, and it would seem like more sustainable. We didn't have all these fast food restaurants, and we not too many fat people, overweight people. Everybody was mainly streamlined.
Like you're saying as far as because of the health, there was more because of more natural foods, people were at a more natural weight.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So let's go back to your family and everything. How would you describe your mother and father?
They were very good, kind to each other. They wake up early in the morning laughing and talking, and they had a big sense of humor, and they was good to us, their children, and they loved us, and they cared about us. If it was raining and we had to walk to school, which wasn't that far around the corner, my father would pick us up if he was home.
Okay, and how was, and a lot of people talk about gender roles nowadays because for my generation, gender roles are totally different. Like, nowadays, women could do whatever, almost like a man could do different occupations and different opportunities out there compared to back then. Do you think were gender roles were this like how people imagine it back then, where the mother was more so the nurturer, cooking and cleaning and just in the house, mostly like the housewife type of vibe, or what, and your dad was more of the hardworking? Were your parents like that, or was it different?
They were similar to that, but going back, besides my parents, most black women always worked. And how I grew up, we were, even the church I went to was run by a woman, and my father didn't have hang-ups about what a woman should or shouldn't do.
Right.
He just let people feel free to be themselves. So it was no big thing to go to a church and a woman was the pastor. We didn't pay that any attention about when they said a woman shouldn't preach.
All right. So there wasn't any sexism and all that.
No, it was not.
Okay. Wow. Okay, that's interesting. All right. So how How many, because you weren't the only child, so how many siblings did you have, and how was it like growing up not being the only child?
I wouldn't know what it's like not being the only child.
No, I'm saying as far as like you were born not being the only child, so you had
Okay.
siblings. So how was that?
That was fun because we
Mm-hmm.
played games together, and my sister and I, we had lots of sisters, but we would talk about what went on that day, talk about boys, and laugh what someone would wear to school the next day. And when you walk in the classroom, the person walk in, you would just look at each other and laugh. So people said, y'all always the laughingest people I ever seen.
And
Because we already talked about the person before they came to school.
so you and your siblings, you guys never had like beefs or wanted to fight each other. You guys,
Only fight we mainly had when we wanted some of the same thing, like a piece of candy or
oh,
a clothes that I wanted to wear or something like this. Simple things that we would see who could get it from the other faster.
okay, so nothing serious.
Nothing serious, no.
Okay, so what was it like growing up with a lack of modern technology? You know, nowadays we have internet, we have the digital world, we have augmented reality, robotics, all different types of stuff. But back then it was kind of, as far as what was out at the public for the public in the 50s and 60s, with the lack of modern technology, not having cell phones or modern flat screen or touch screen technology, TVs and all that. Uh, what kind of technology did you guys have back then? You growing up in your household, and how was it like? Did it feel like life was more simple with the technology you guys had, or did you feel like there was something missing, or
No, because if you never really experienced that, you really wouldn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And only now that I realize some of the songs from the 50s and the 60s are slower. But at that time,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't know they were slow because there was nothing to compare them to.
Okay, so let's start with this. What technology did you guys have growing up in the 50s and 60s?
We basically had radio and a little black and white TV.
Oh, black and white
But
TV.
all the
Okay.
TVs were black and white, all the cars were black, all the telephones were black, and all the stove appliances were white.
Mm-hmm. Did that feel weird to you that everything that you saw in real life was in color, but on the TV was black and white? Did that kind of conflict with how you perceived the
No,
world?
it did. It did, because we live in a era where everything either is black or white, and right or wrong, silly stuff like that. So there was nothing really compare it to.
Okay. So as far as like so as far as music, you guys just had vinyls and record players at that time.
Exactly.
What were some of your favorite pieces of music or favorite artists back then
Well, I like
from the 50s and 60s?
Fats Domino, Ray Charles,
Mm-hmm.
gospel singers, yeah, James Brown, and a lot of gospel singers, and I also like classical music also, and jazz, a little bit of jazz, and Louis Armstrong.
Mm-hmm.
I was just a little kid then, but I still know how to delight those people.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Cooke.
And compared to like I mentioned before, compared to technology with you growing up and from everything now, do you feel like, looking back now, do you feel like times were more simple with the technology you guys had and things are more kind of distracting now, or you think it's a good thing that we have more options for modern technology?
I think it's a good thing that we have more options for modern technology, because that does help people in the science level. It helps in lots of ways, and you can look at things different.
Mm-hmm.
But during that time, you didn't miss it because you never had it.
Right. So talking about school, what was school like?
With the schools, we had only one teacher. You stay in the same class all day in the first grade.
Wow.
I knew all my teachers. My last teacher just died about a year ago.
Wow.
And that was my 7th grade teacher. My 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th teacher, they all lived right in the same town, the same zip code. We went to the same stores. We went basically to the same church, but a
Wow.
different denomination. All my teachers I knew very well, but some of them I liked better than others because some of them followed too many petty things.
So they were like they were kind of more like a tutor or mentor in a way, with how they were just kind of exclusive to one set of class, right? Like
Yeah,
one class.
right, but not necessarily a tutor, because a
Okay.
tutor have very little people most of the time in the class. But the classroom was overcrowded because of
Oh.
racism.
Okay, I see, because it was segregated at that time.
Exactly.
Okay. But how did you enjoy? Did you feel like the learning process was good and easy for you? And did you enjoy the environment of the classroom?
Oh yes, I love going to school. My
Mm.
first grade, when I was in first grade, when I looked over and saw so many boys to play with, I was very, very happy.
Oh yeah, you as a little girl,
Yeah,
right?
I was very happy.
Okay, so you were the type of girl to you like to be around more of the guys.
Exactly.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people like that, like girls or women in general. They just feel more comfortable around
Yeah.
males and stuff like that. But yeah, so you guys just had basically number two pencil and paper.
Yes.
Did you guys just had a regular composition notebook and all of that? And did your teacher use a projector?
No, they didn't have projectors.
Okay.
They
Oh
had the
wait. Okay.
blackboards.
Black. Chalkboard.
Chalkboard, yeah.
Okay, yeah, cause
And that was an honor just for the teacher to ask you to clean the chalkboard.
oh yeah. I wasn't a fan of chalkboards because they get messy all over the place. But in my schools we had projectors. We had different monitors.
Yeah.
We had smart boards and stuff like that, and
Right.
mechanical pencils. Some kids in my class would just bring a pen and use it.
Wow.
So yeah, that's really interesting. So let me ask you too about school. All the times when I was in high school, I used to complain to you about how bad the school lunch was. So how was school lunch for you guys? Was it more wholesome or?
It was definitely more wholesome because they made hot food. We didn't get this little TV dinners that was sent to the school. We had hot cooked food.
Because my school, we would have breakfast pizza, and the weird, ironic thing is they would give us grape, apple juice, and orange juice for breakfast, and we would have breakfast pizza where the cheese would just slide off. You could literally pull it off like a sticker. But then when it comes to lunchtime, they would give us milk. So I'm like, well, why don't they give us juice like they did in the morning for lunch? Because I would prefer the juice in the afternoon for lunch,
Of course,
But
right.
but I always found that weird. I didn't understand the whole milk thing with pizza and all that other stuff. But yeah, but that's interesting. So I also like, what were some? I know the biggest thing for growing up as a kid or teenager, even as a young adult, is snacks. So like, what were some snacks or pieces of candy that existed back then that that are discontinued now, like don't exist now?
It's hard to say. We had hot balls. I think it was called hot balls. I don't see those anymore, and they probably are at some places. And most of the candy we ate when we were kids, I ate when I was a kid, it's still around.
Oh, okay. Okay.
There's something called jawbone breakers. I don't see those anymore.
Okay. With the prices being inflated today with food and all drinks and all different types of things, how was like the prices back then? Like what could you get for? I know everything was more on a cents based value. Like everything cost mostly cents, or maybe $1, $2, $5. So what were some typical things that people buy now that was much like cheaper to get back then?
Pack of gum, 5 cent, 4 pieces in 4 slap.
Mm-hmm.
4 pieces in a pack for 5 cent. Bubble gum was a penny, which is probably 25 cent today, or at least 10 cent. And we had something called an all-day sucker. An all-day sucker was a penny or 5 cent. I can't remember the. It was a candy on both ends, and that's like a stick made in one, but a candy on both ends, so they call it an all-day sucker, which is funny. I don't see that anymore. That's when you asked me earlier.
Okay, so
I thought of that.
So what could you get for how much was usually like a pizza or a burger or something like
We
that?
didn't have pizza. As I recall, pizza was probably a big city thing, but a hamburger was 15 cents.
Okay, the same for a hot dog.
Hot dogs were 10 cents for about 20 years.
Okay, so typical, like if you went to your typical grocery store, how much was like milk and bread and stuff like that?
A loaf of bread was 25 cents, as I can remember, and milk was 25 cents for a quart.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, that's interesting. I just think about it now, like being able to, with all the change. Well, a lot of people don't have much change in their pocket now, but just think about having change and looking back and be able to buy all that stuff
That's right.
that you could get for $1.
Right. A pack of potato chips was 5 cents. Today I think they 75 or $1. The same pack we bought for 5 cents.
Yeah, I think the medium average size bag for chips now is probably like 2 something now.
Wow.
You know,
That's amazing.
because I remember when they used to be like 149 or something like that years ago. But now it's like, I think it's like 2 something, 249, something around there.
And bananas were 10 cents a pound, good 25 or 30 years before they went up. In somewhere in the 80s, the 10 cent went away for years and years.
I wanted to ask you about the clothing. Like, what was some typical clothing that you guys would wear in the 50s and 60s?
We had something called a can skirt. It was a slip that went under your clothes and it stands you right out. It was starched and had lots and lots of frills and lace. And you walk, you could just move back and forth.
Okay.
And then something called a Mary Jane skirt too. We had that.
So you guys mostly wore skirts and stuff.
Skirts and dresses. Nobody wore pants until the 70s.
Oh wow. Okay, and the hairstyles, what were the hairstyles
They were
like?
different. Some of them similar to they are today, and some are not.
Was it more curls and
More curls.
Okay. Were people
Curls and bangs.
wearing wigs back then?
Very little. If people had on a wig, you wouldn't say anything because that would be embarrassing just to know you had a wig. And some people would laugh at you behind your back.
It's different now. People have no shame in
No
wearing a
shame
wig.
in they wig.
They have it with different colors, all types of
All
stuff.
kinds.
Okay, so this is the I want to transition to the part you mentioned before about segregation, because I know based on the conversations we had in the past, you mentioned that you where you did, like the area where you were, it wasn't as bad, but there was still segregation.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask, we know based on African American history that segregation was very significant in the 50s, around the 50s and 60s in the South, in the southern region of America. So when we talk about segregation, like how bad, I know you said it wasn't as bad as other places, but how bad was it where you were?
And speaking of segregation, it was like you say, it maybe was more
negative, more negative.
Negative, and you could see it more, but it was bad. It was in, as they say, the North too, but it was done in a more sophisticated way.
Right. Okay.
And so, when I was growing up, high fashion department stores had a bathroom for white men, white women, black women, but the black man did not have a bathroom. So when the bathrooms were crowded, I would run to the white man's bathroom and didn't care because I was not afraid of nothing when I was little.
Wow.
And I could run fast, so if they saw me in there, I was peeping first and make sure no one was in the store. And if someone come after me, they couldn't believe I had that much of nerve in the first place, and I would run fast. And so one day we drank at a water fountain, and this white lady came up and said, "You're not supposed to drink from there." And I said, "Why?" And she couldn't answer me. And then my crazy girlfriend said she can't read. And as we left the store, we laughed and we laughed.
Oh wow.
So I would play games with them also.
So as a kid, did your parents have to explain segregation to you, or did you by yourself pick it up? How did
I
you
learned that myself. They didn't necessarily explain that, but they always told us to be home at a certain time and watch where you go and don't talk so much. And so that was kind of, in a sense, that was a way, but directly no, because we saw it anyway, but they never explained it.
Do you remember the initial point where you realized that the country was divided, where you were, like, what was the first incident or first thing you saw where you was like, oh, oh, there's a race war here? What was the first thing? Was there a certain event you saw? Like, how did you actually get introduced to seeing that stuff?
I really don't know.
Okay.
The major event only can remember direct was Emmett Till's death, because he was a kid and I was a kid, and that bothered me for years and years.
So did you see that on the TV or heard on the radio?
On the TV, and mainly on the TV and Jet Magazine. They posted in Jet Magazine more, and it was on the radio a lot.
So on the TV, that was live when you saw it?
I don't think it was live either, because the South hid a lot of things from us so we wouldn't know. But I can't say it was because I wasn't watching TV then.
Oh, okay. So I mean, you guys did have a black and white TV, but you didn't watch TV
during that time. No, there was mostly crap on there. I didn't particularly like it no way.
Okay. So as you mentioned as a child that you had her certain slick ways to get around some of the segregation, but how did it actually make you feel as a kid? Because something like that could make, a kid is young and stuff like that could make you feel, as a kid sometimes certain things that are cruel like that could make you very emotional. Like, how did that bother you, or were you kind of like, oh, that it is what it is kind of?
No, it did bother me for a long time. I always wanted revenge. Because I was very young, I could do a lot of crazy stuff, and people wouldn't believe I would have that much nerve or was that intelligent.
Okay.
And so
your parents had to give you a pep talk sometimes?
No, they didn't know about how I felt in that sense, because it was too painful. And sometimes I didn't want to burden my parents with certain things, so that's where I had my sisters and girlfriends to talk about sick stuff.
Okay, so did you see any of your parents have to face issues with segregation? Like, maybe did your mom or dad come home and say, oh, this happened, or you maybe overheard them having a conversation or something like that?
One thing I remember, a long time ago, my father was coming home, and he had, I think it was kerosene on his truck in a container, but it may not have had a top on it, and they fined him for that. By the only thing I can remember that he complained about. I'm sure there was a lot of other things, but he never complained to us because we were kids.
So what's a kerosene? What's that?
Kerosene is a cooking oil.
Okay, so
heating oil.
So he put that on top, or
no? It was in his truck in a container, but the container didn't have a top on it. I think he was accused for something like small, something. Okay, small. It was a real minor thing.
Oh, okay, wow. Okay, so growing up, so there was still segregation when you became a teenager, right? When you were in high school, right?
Yeah, definitely so.
Was it worse from when you were a kid as you got older into becoming a teenager, or did it start slowly going down
It was a little better, but not much better. It was a little bit like a subtle thing.
Okay, so when you were a teenager, that was in the 60s. Was that, the late 60s was with Martin Luther King's speech. Were you a teenager then at that time?
Yes, I was.
Okay, so did you see that on TV live?
Yes.
Okay. What was your initial thoughts as a teenager seeing that on TV live for the first time ever?
I was happy that this country was exposed to the cruelness of other races of people.
Okay, so what you, of course, I mean, I'm sure when you saw that live, were you around with your family watching it together, or was
different news segments and stuff like that?
No, I mean Martin Luther King's speech. Were you watching that with your family, or was it just you watching it?
Which speech? The one in Washington?
The main one is, what was that? 1968?
64.
64. Okay.
No, I was in not Norwalk, Connecticut. I was in Newtown, Connecticut, watching Three Dogs for a white lady while she went over to Europe. So I was in there watching it by myself. I was in about 15 room house.
Wait, so you were an adult then?
No, I was about 16 or 17. That was my summer job.
Okay.
3 dogs for the summer.
That's interesting.
Just me and 3 dogs.
Well, you said she had 15.
About 15 or 17 room. I lived in a 17 room house by myself when I was 16 or 17. I didn't see a black person for the whole summer. When one black man came out there, I did not know him. I wanted to run and hug him.
But wow, that's a I couldn't even
job.
But I couldn't even, no, I'm just thinking about, like, I couldn't even imagine being in a 15, 17 room. That's a lot
I was surrounded by a fish pond and a lot of apple trees.
But I'm sure, even though, despite what was going on in the country, that was still an interesting experience for you, especially as a teenager.
Oh yeah, definitely so.
Cause I don't know too many people like at that age is experienced to, or just younger people experienced to just being in a house with that, with that many rooms and stuff like that.
Yeah, that didn't bother me, and we was near a wooded area. I always had a good connection with the woods. I always felt some spiritual connection because we grew up in a kind of semi-wooded area, so I love trees.
Right.
And so that one thing I never feared. I felt good. I just missed my family, but I felt good.
Yeah, cause I remember your sister Grandma, she mentioned one time a few years ago, she said if the birds are chirping and they're present, that's how you know things were at least decent or alright, because you could go based off nature and see what's going.
And see what the world is like, of how the weather gonna be.
Were you able to see some of Malcolm X speeches or see him on TV live as well?
No, I basically heard some of his speeches.
Okay.
And I never did get to see him, but I just heard a lot of his speeches, and I was fascinated by him because he spoke truth.
So what about Rosa Parks? Did you?
I heard about Rosa Parks too, but I never got to see her.
Okay, so what were, besides Emmett Till, what were some other events you remember with segregation?
This lunch encounter in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Where all the people stayed, where
they couldn't be served food.
Right, okay, I remember that.
Not because they were black, because they weren't white, if you want to put it that way.
Okay, wow.
Same difference, but I like to say it that way sometimes.
Okay, and that was one that you remember.
Yeah, I remember there were so many things, and the train, riding on the train, and all those things too.
And I forgot to ask you, besides, what were some other things that you saw personally living where you were with segregation, where you see where it says white and colored? What were some, besides the bathrooms, what were some other places where you saw those signs?
It was the water fountains, as I stated before. Okay. The lady said you shouldn't drink from there. I asked her why. Mm-hmm. She never answered me. I think she just walked away, and my girlfriend said to her, I can't read. Okay. And so she probably bought that.
So did you ever see, like, when you were around, like, I guess, like, white people, did they give any of you guys, like, certain faces or demeanor? They had a certain demeanor when you guys walked by, or it was just
I really didn't pay that close attention, but they had something called a white stare. They could stare at you, but I didn't pay any attention because I knew who I was. And my grandmother taught us a lot too about human beings and how we supposed to be. Nobody was better than the other. Mm-hmm. And I kind of understand where they were coming from, but I just couldn't figure out why could they be so evil and cruel to somebody that has never hurt them or tried to overthrow the country. Never done anything to them, and why would they be so cruel to somebody like that? I couldn't figure that one out.
As far as some research, being derived from slavery, and then also when America was being explored at the time, the Native Americans were already, Native American tribes were already in North America and stuff like that, and so a lot of their resources were taken away from them and stuff like that. So I feel like, a lot of that is part of that historical culture and all that kept building up in different ways. Yes. And okay, so I know once you graduated high school, you decided to move up north to the city, to New York and everything like that. How old were you at the time when you moved?
Probably about 17, but I went there I went to visit lots of times before I lived there. Okay. But I basically lived in Connecticut first. Later.
Okay, so what made you want to move from the South to New York?
There, it was extremely boring. I enjoyed my neighbors where I grew up. Was very nice people, and I loved my neighbors and I loved my parents. But you couldn't do nothing. I was extremely bored. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. Okay. And I knew I could do better somewhere else. And my intentions was to go to UCLA. But I
Oh,
spent most of my money, so I stayed in New York, and then I went to Brooklyn College.
okay. And so how was that transition? How did you adapt from the farm like slow culture life to the fast pace where
It was nothing to
resourceful?
adapt to, because I already had in my mind what it was like, because I went to visit a lot of times, and I enjoyed the movies and the
Okay.
theater and shopping and the fine people
So at
and
the
all those
so
things.
at the time when you moved, was that the 70s when you?
It was in the late '60s.
Okay, and that was after or when MLK got assassinated. That
Yeah,
was
he was in
68,
the
right?
middle '60s. Yeah, when he
Six.
was
Okay,
assassinated.
so when you moved to New York, that was after that happened, or was it
Before it happened, because
before?
your mother
Okay,
was a baby that same year.
okay, and so when you what was like the segregation like in New York City? Or was there, or was it hard to tell up
No,
there?
it was easy to tell, because
Okay.
it was pretty much the same thing, but we live in tenements in New York City, and the people in the
Oh,
South lived in kind of like little houses or shacks.
so was there colored and white signs in New York?
No, no, they
Okay,
didn't have those signs. Maybe way out in some of the countrysides of New
New
York,
York.
maybe you've had them, but right in the city, they didn't directly have those signs.
Okay.
And the only difference, in my opinion, as I when I went to visit, the only difference I could see with the Southern whites and the New York whites, in my opinion, it was just the accent. They had the same mentality,
Okay, okay,
and
but
they didn't follow up little petty things as much as the Southern people did. But the only difference to me was the accent.
so it was a tad bit different as far as like New York being more resourceful and having more opportunities,
Exactly,
but
exactly.
there were still people that were discriminating.
Of
So,
course, big
okay,
time.
but
Yeah,
it
that's
but
the
but it
same
but it
nonsense.
wasn't as bad as the South.
Overt, no,
Oh,
not as
whatever.
overt, and
Okay,
not as extreme or as cruel.
okay. Did you notice that the fashion and things changing or was different compared to the South? Like, what were there more like high end clothing up there or?
Yeah, they always had the nice high end clothes, and then they changed too, and they start bringing them south. You see,
So when you used to travel a lot, was it mostly like through taxis and stuff
no,
or the subway?
in New York,
Yeah.
yeah, subway, bus, taxis mainly on weekends more
Oh,
than during the week.
okay. And how much was it to take the subway back then?
It was 15 cent.
What?
Yeah, 15 cent.
15 cents?
Yep.
Wow. The last time I think we visited New York, it was like two something one
About
way.
250 or
Two
240, something like
Wow,
that.
that's
Yeah,
crazy.
it was 15 cent.
How were the trains like back then? Back then, was it more safer? What was the
Which train? The
any train? Like I mean,
Yeah, it was
just
a little more safer, because we had so many trains that connect you that take you maybe 20 or 30 minutes outside New York City.
and that's when in the 80s the crime got worse because of like drugs and
Drugs
stuff.
and stuff came
Right.
in, because our people was more better human beings than they were after drugs came in. That changed a lot too.
Yeah. That okay. Wow. Eventually, as you got older, you got married and everything like that, and had my mother. How would you describe my grandfather?
Oh, he was very nice, very friendly. He liked going places, doing things, and a lot of people liked him.
When my mother was born, how did you feel becoming a new mom?
I felt great.
Okay, was it easy? Was it easy for you, or was it a challenge?
In what way?
Just being a new mother, just like
No, I took care of 3 kids that were babies. My brother and 2 cousins, and I knew from that point on, as far as taking care of a child, I knew I could handle it. But I wasn't thinking about finance at the time. But I just had to take care of baby, and I always take care of children very well. And I always tell their parents, if your child get hurt, that mean I got hurt too.
wow.
So they know they were safe.
You being a mother and as an adult, what were some like jobs you had or some job positions you enjoyed doing?
I worked for Bankers Trust one time. I liked that pretty well.
Okay.
I worked for the Environmental Protection Agency. This was a summer job. I liked that.
Okay.
I worked for Kodak Camera Company. That was a summer job.
Oh.
And then I went on to school and got where I could get better jobs.
All right. Okay.
And I also learned how to set up the IBM machine. We don't have IBM machines no more unless they're in other countries. I doubt it. And I was very well at that. And then I went on and I became a social worker.
So you used a lot of typewriters then, right?
Yeah, a lot of typewriters. You had to learn how to type at least 34 words a minute without error.
Oh, wow.
To get a job typing. But I heard, I heard this man could type 80 words a minute without error, and that was Ray Charles.
Oh, well, I mean, would that kind of make sense because he plays the piano?
Maybe so.
Yeah, because if he plays the piano so fast, he could definitely type fast. Okay, so eventually, as time goes on, your daughter has a daughter, which is me. So, you were the first person to hold me after, birth and everything like that. So, how did you feel seeing me for the first time?
Yeah, well, I was happy holding you, and and I figured some people say you don't know your child if you saw one time, and I proved that wasn't true.
Oh, wow.
I looked at you for a while, and then they take you and put you back, and I saw you again. I knew it was you without any doubt.
Wow. How would you describe me in 2 words now that you know me now as an adult and everything?
She's nice. And
no, don't say it in like don't say it in like second person. Just say it like you're. How would you describe me? Like you're talking to me now. So
you very intelligent. And you know what you want in life, and you go after it.
Okay, what are some hopes you have for me as your granddaughter?
To be very successful and get all the things you want in life, and stay healthy.
Okay, thank you. So, Grandma, you help so many people within our family and even people outside our family. Why do you continue to help people when you don't need to?
Because I like helping people. I don't like to see people sad. I hate to know that someone needs something. You have the means to help them and you don't.
Right.
And it don't always have to be finance. No, if finances with that, you out of luck.
Right.
It was just other types of help.
So yeah, Grandma. So continuing, last few questions here. What were your thoughts? I know this is kind of like transitioning into a big historic event that happened in 2020. What were your thoughts on the COVID pandemic? Since that was something mostly all generations have never seen in that particular way.
The COVID devastation was very devastating to a lot of people because it made a lot of people very depressed. They had to stay home, and it was a big change.
Mm-hmm. Did it have an effect on you?
Not really, a little bit, because I couldn't go some of the places I wanted to go, normally go. And it did, and you had to cover yourself up a lot.
I know.
But I faced the fact and let it go.
I know for me it was pretty peaceful. It was pretty peaceful in a way where not many people are out. In the city there was less smokers, so you didn't smell smoke as much.
You wouldn't inhale a lot of smoke. Yeah.
Okay. Well, what advice would you give to the younger generations growing up about life? What advice would you give to us, the younger generation?
To always understand that there is someone out there bigger than you. Respect yourself, respect other people, try to eat good food, and be kind.
Okay. If you could give the world a goal to accomplish, what would that goal be? If you had to give the world a goal, like say, hey world, we should all, I want to see you world accomplish this.
I'm not really sure how I would do that, but all I would say, respect yourself in the universe, and be a part of the universe, and don't forget it.
A goal you would have for the world is basically like people having more awareness that we are all connected and all unified.
Connected, right.
Okay. And lastly, what are some goals that you have for yourself, or what are some things you still want to accomplish?
I like to just travel a little more and continue helping people in the best way I can when I can.
All right, awesome. So, well, Grandma, I want to thank you once again for taking the time to share your voice, and I hope to see you do more amazing things with your journey. I also want to thank you for the amazing things you've done and the things you've done to help me. And I just want to let you know that I love you and I appreciate you, and you mean so much to me. I always keep saying this. That I want to manifest, being able to travel around the world more with you. I know you just mentioned traveling, but I do want to travel more with you in the future, because I remember all the times you used to take me places, and you used to travel allow me to see more of the world as a kid.
Right.
So I want to, give that back as well. And so yeah, I just want to be able to help you even in a much more bigger way, that more than how you've helped me, and just have more amazing memories. But thanks again, and for whoever is listening right now, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Please click the like button if you enjoyed this conversation. Check out some of my other conversations as well. And yeah, take care, everyone. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.